Oh. Ah. All right. What's the good word, Eli? How was your weekend?
It was great. I did, you know what? I got a new washing machine, so I just did a lot of laundry. I was washing absolutely everything in the house. It was fun, in an adulting kind of a way, as that tends to be.
Right on.
How was your
Hey,
weekend?
good, good. Just I was out on Fire Island, and we just it was just relaxing. Got some fresh air, which is always a great thing. And
Oh
then
yeah.
yeah, so that was nice. And now coming back into the week, and we have lots of new music news to discuss. I'm just starting to ping some people into the room. If anybody want to ping in,
All right.
just as we
I'll
get to
do
the
the same.
countdown. Yeah. All right, well, here we go into the countdown. All right. Stationhead reaches 500,000 users, Apple's misleading payout, COVID festival planning, and Facebook going after Clubhouse with a lot of rollouts. South by Southwest sold, plus your daily Spotify updates. It's the week in review. But it's not the weekend review because it's the weekend in review. I'm thinking we're going to start like the weekend in review. I should really like have to edit my scripts because I am Ron Burgundy, and if it's on the teleprompter, I am reading it. So, sorry about that. It's the Monday kickoff, so let's. We have a lot to talk about. Let's first turn to my co-host Eli Window. How you doing, Eli? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, Peter. Yeah, it's great to see you too. We can see each other. We are broadcasting live right now. We are streaming the Music News Power Hour. So thanks for joining us and thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. Let's look at this day in history. On today, 2003, the oldest working musician in Britain, Conrad Leonard, died aged 104. Composer and pianist Leonard had worked with Cole Porter, Petula Clark, and at the BBC during his illustrious career. We lost on this day in 1993 American saxophonist and flautist Steve Douglas, who died aged 54. He recorded with Duane Eddy, Aretha Franklin, Elvis Presley, Bob Dylan, the Ramones, and others. Moving on, born on this day, 1942, South African producer and engineer Eddie Kramer, who has worked with many artists, including the Beatles on Magical Mystery Tour, David Bowie, Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, The Kinks, Led Zeppelin. He engineered 5 of Led Zeppelin's albums, the Rolling Stones, and Carlos Santana. Kramer and his crew attended the 1969 Woodstock Festival, where they actually recorded the entire festival, born on this day. Also born on this day in 1944, American keyboardist and composer Bernie Worrell, best known as a founding member of Parliament Funkadelic and for his work with Talking Heads, a personal favorite of mine. I actually got to film him in concert one time. Born on this day, 1966, Suge Knight, American record producer, music executive. He is the co founder and former CEO of Death Row Records, born on this day. On this day in history, 1980, 32-year-old English singer Brian Johnson joined the Australian group AC/DC, replacing Bon Scott, who had died after a drinks binge in February 1980. On this day in 1980, for the first time ever, the top 5 artists on the US country charts were all female. Crystal Gale, who was at number 1 with Dottie West, Debbie Boone, Emmylou Harris, and Tammy Wynette making up the rest of the top 5. Yeah, ladies. On this day in 1997, Michael Jackson attended an unveiling of a waxed statue of himself at the Grevin Museum of Wax in Paris, France. Jackson provided one of his own outfits to dress the figure. It would be pretty eerie to see a wax figure of yourself. On this day, 2010, a week after Catholic Church officials published an article in the Vatican's Romano newspaper that said they forgave John Lennon's remarks about the Beatles being bigger than Jesus, Ringo Starr rejected their forgiveness. The newspaper's editors had written, the Beatles said they were bigger than Jesus, and they put out mysterious messages that were possibly even satanic. But what would pop music be like without the Beatles? Ringo was unimpressed and replied, didn't the Vatican say we were satanic or possibly satanic, and they've still forgiven us? I think the Vatican, they've got more to talk about than the Beatles. From the mouth of Ringo Starr. And on this day, 2014, the White House refused to comment on a campaign to deport Justin Bieber from the U.S. Around 275,000 people had signed a petition on its website calling for the Canadian pop singer to be removed from the U.S. The campaign had been set up in January when the 20-year-old was arrested on suspicion of drunk and drug driving and illegal drag racing. Tough day for Justin Bieber, 2014. And that's it for this day in history. Over to you, Peter.
Right on. Thank you for that. I mean, it's really interesting. You know, I remember that Justin Bieber debacle, and it was like, hey, get out of our country. I'm like, of all the people to like want to export.
You're going to try to get rid of the Biebs? Aren't you a believer? Come on.
Exactly. So, all right. So, we're going to get into news just in a moment, but how this works is we're going to read some sections from the headlines. We scour the World Wide Web for news that we find important, and maybe you do too. And we're going to read some headlines. And if you feel like joining the conversation, you can raise your hand if you have any thoughts, feedback, or if there's something you want to bring to the table. So, for the first, big half is we read the articles and something comes up, we can chit chat about it. But then the back half is all about that round table of discussion. So if there's anything you want to bring to the table, if there's something that we didn't talk about, then you can bring it on to the table and we'll talk about it. So here we go. All right, kicking off with Fyre Fest. Everybody's favorite festival, Fyre Fest. Billy McFarland is no longer in solitary confinement after spending 6 months in lockup for a podcast interview. All right, and this one comes from Consequence Sound. And again, all the articles and links are in the show notes that you can find at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the image that says Clubhouse Information Center, and you'll be able to access the document there. So if you want to play along at home, then you can click on those links there. So, article starts off, Fyre Fest co-founder Billy McFarland is out of solitary confinement after spending 6 weeks in lockup for his participation in a podcast interview, according to Insider. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons database, McFarland was released and transferred to FCC Oklahoma City for FCI Elkin Prison to Lisbon, Ohio, where he was previously held in solitary. Quote, it was punitive. At first, they said he violated rules by speaking to the media, which there is no such rule, McFarland's attorney Jason Russo told Insider. Quote, then they accused him of doing three-way calls, which you're not allowed to do, but these were not three-way calls. Russo added that the prison also brought charges against McFarland for photos posted to an Instagram account purportedly managed by, quote, Billy's team. The attorney claimed all of the charges were dropped except for McFarland's violation of a rule forbidding incarcerated people from sharing commissary funds. In October 2020, McFarland was placed in a 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement after his Fyre Fest podcast appearance. He was also already serving out a 6-year prison sentence after pleading guilty to bank fraud, wire fraud, and lying to investigators. On the podcast aptly titled Dumpster Fire, McFarland explained to the co-host Jordan Harbinger how the promised, quote, cultural experience of the decade wound up looking like a post-apocalyptic hellscape. McFarland said any money made from the podcast will go towards the $26 million in restitution he owes the victims. And as we spoke earlier last week, organizers of the Fyre Festival and 277 attendees reached a $2 million settlement amounting to $7,220 payment for each plaintiff in the class action lawsuit. So, I actually have to say I love that title of the podcast, Dumpster Fire.
I think that's a term that's being thrown around a lot, lately.
Yes. Mm. Well, I think 2020. I think the greatest ornament, tree ornament, was it just said 2020, and it was a big giant. It was just a big giant dumpster on fire.
I have one.
Oh,
My mom got
perfect.
it for me for Christmas.
Right on. All right, moving on. Social audio platform Stationhead continues rapid growth, reaches 500,000 active users in Q1 of 2021. Okay, and this Stationhead is a social audio platform reinventing live radio. Today announced a significant platform milestone, reaching 500,000 active users in Q1 of 2021. Stationhead is revolutionizing the way audio content is created and consumed, providing the ability for anyone to become a host of their own audio show. Stationhead's 500,000 active users are located around the world and are streaming and hosting hundreds of thousands of hours of content daily while connecting on the topics and tracks they're most passionate about. Quote, the future of audio has arrived and we've purposely built Stationhead for this moment and opened the airwaves to everyone, said Ryan Starr, CEO and co-founder of Stationhead. He continues, our rapid growth is just the beginning as Stationhead is unlocking something fundamental about the way people want to connect with one another and create content. With a focus on building its community through creators, the social audio platform now has 6,300 hosts globally, which resulted in nearly 2 million live and recorded streams throughout the quarter. During Q1 of 2021, community engagement significantly increased with 3.2 million messages and 13.9 million emojis sent as users engaged with and celebrated their favorite creators. This high level engagement is direct evidence that Stationhead's ability to connect and captivate users who, on average, spend more time in app than on competing platforms such as TikTok and Instagram. So the article goes on. This is from WFMZ.com, and you can find this in the show notes there, this link. It's really interesting. Has anybody played around with Stationhead or listened to Stationhead, tuned in, downloaded it, anything, Eli?
I'm not familiar. No, I would like to learn more.
It is interesting. You can, in essence, be your own DJ, and it's licensed. So what I downloaded it really quick to play with it really quick, and it was really simple to set up. I created just your username, logged in. You can link your Spotify or your Apple account, yeah, and what you basically do is you can either have a Spotify playlist or you can just add tracks from Spotify and you could put them in an order and you can go live. You can just press go live and say, hey, here is my top 10 for the week. Thanks for tuning in.
Wow.
And I can pause, I can play the music, and I can also talk over the music. So there's different buttons. I can press a button that says talk over music. So, you could really have your own radio DJ show. They say the licensing is in place because it is pulling in whatever deal structure it is pulling through Apple and Spotify. I'm sure somebody's going to find a loophole on that or figure out a way to say, no, this isn't right. But it has been around for about 5 years. And it's really starting to connect, and people there's a chat window in there, and people can tip. So you can actually get tipped as a DJ.
That's
Can you?
really cool, and that's exciting. Oh, sorry, Angela, go ahead, and then I wanted to quickly say hi and welcome Lewis to the stage. You had your hand up, and please feel free to let us know what's on your mind when Angela's through here.
I just wanted to ask, Peter, did you happen to know I missed the part? Do they allow you to sort of save it to share later so you can keep an archive of it, or is it just go live for the moment and away it goes?
It is archived. It's archived on the platform. So it's there's playback. So I don't think you can't save it outside the shell, but you can save it on the platform itself. So if you missed out on somebody, if you missed my awesome 10 songs to go surfing to, then you can play that back. Okay.
Excellent. Lewis, welcome to the stage. You had your hand up. Did you have something to comment on about this last article?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Lewis. Yes, I stumbled across Stationhead. I think I've been using it probably for about 7 months now. I believe I attended a conference. I believe it was like Downtown Music Conference over the summer, and I was introduced to the platform, so I started using it. It's a great platform. I'm surprised it haven't caught on faster because yes, you do get the artists get credited for streams for as many listeners as the hosts have at that moment, whether it's Spotify or Apple Music, because and you're correct, they is licensed through those platforms already, because the actual end user is listening from their Spotify account. So the actual end user, agrees to let the platform take control of their Spotify or Apple Music at the time, and they listening through their own. So that's how the artists get credit. But it's a great platform. I encourage people to
Very
use
cool.
it.
All right. Thank you very much for that. That's interesting to know that it is connected. So you have to connect it to so you're playing it off of your Spotify. So it's a unique individual stream, and that can tie in. Okay. Well, speaking of, playlists and music apps. So if anybody caught last week, Apple made an announcement and talking about how much money it pays per stream. And some of these numbers and media were reporting that Apple was claiming to pay out 1 cent per stream. And this article here in Variety from Jem Oswald is titled, "Why It's Misleading to Say Apple Music Pays Twice as Much per Stream as Spotify." And this is a very in-depth article, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing. It is in our show notes at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and you'll be able to access the show notes in there, which has the links to the articles. So Jem starts off, early Friday, Apple Music sent a carefully worded letter to artists, music labels, and publishers that briefly explained, quote, how creators earn royalties from the streaming service, which is the world's second largest behind Spotify. The letter, which was not sent to the media, was obtained by the Wall Street Journal, which published a report that was not inaccurate, but since it was the only reliable source of the news from media outlets, was often inaccurately re-reported. Most frequently in multiple headlines stating that Apple Music pays twice as much per stream as Spotify. Variety has obtained the letter from 3 different industry sources, and while it makes no direct reference to Spotify and no direct claim that Apple Music pays twice as much per stream, the Swedish company, and particularly the public report it issued last month attempting to clarify its royalty policies, is clearly the target of some of more of its barbed statements. More to the point, some of the statements in the letter were not fully conveyed in the initial reporting. So this goes on. Starts saying the per stream rate is addressed in brief paragraph in the letter, which reads in full, quote, our average per play rate is 0.01. While royalties from streaming services are calculated on a stream share basis, a play still has value. This value varies by subscription plan and country, but averaged 0.1 cent for Apple Music individual paid plans in 2020. This includes label and publisher royalties. Goes on, it does not provide details on how that average was reached. The Wall Street Journal article unpacks the paragraph more or less accurately, writing saying the Apple pay if in the letter, Apple says it pays 52% of subscription revenue, or 52 cents of every dollar, to record labels. Spotify, which generates revenue both from subscriptions and its free ad-supported tier, says it pays 2/3 of every dollar of revenue to rights holders, with 75% to 80% of that going to labels, which translates to 50 to 53 cents on the dollar, depending on agreements between the service and different labels. So it goes on. It really has a great breakdown. It goes into, talking about it, but there's also something they're talking about from the industry side. What they point out is the inaccurate reports and slippery wording played directly into widespread confusion or lack of knowledge about how artists earn money from streaming services and how misleading per stream rates can be. Spotify states the latter point clearly in its report last month. First, in actuality, streaming services rarely pay artists directly. They pay rights holders, usually labels and publishers, which take their cut and then pay artists their share. Secondly, multiple industry sources tell Variety that although the per-stream model may seem to be the least baffling streaming royalty metric to grasp, it is an antiquated and even inaccurate way of measuring a streaming service's power. Quote, nobody looks at per-stream metrics anymore, at least not internally, one executive of a major label music company tells Variety. Well, what we look at is overall subscription growth, the churn rate, with a low rate being the goal, because it means people are sticking around, and the conversion rate, which is how many people stay past free trial or, in Spotify case, switch from their ad-supported tier to a paid one. So there's a lot to unpack in this discussion. Does anybody in the business really care about the per stream model, as opposed to just artists hearing, oh, Spotify pays this much per stream, and we are going to protest, and we're going to set up protests around the world in front of Spotify's offices? And we've talked about the fact that if even Spotify paid a 1 cent per stream, and we did a calculation, this is about a month ago, based on Spotify's annual reports and other filings, it would come out that they would be negative $600,000, because they would generate $8 million in revenue. That's what they made. And it was like $8 billion in revenue. And it would be $8.6 billion they would have to pay out by calculating all the streams. And that's just the streams. That's not operating costs. That's not, so cost of goods, cost of operations, things like that.
Just the whole streaming model and pay per stream for anyone on either end of the transaction is such a hot topic of debate right now. Everyone has an opinion on this subject.
I was always under the impression that, like the sort of latter part of the article that Peter was talking about, is that the labels strike their deals, and if you tried to break it down per stream, it's kind of ridiculous unless you're in the under 1,000 streams or under 100 followers sort of metric, because anything in the hundreds of thousands to millions to even billions, I mean, they've got to be all kinds of bonuses and extra things baked in there, and when you meet certain milestones, there's got to be extra incentives for that because of how often they're driving that traffic to certain places. So I wouldn't even guess that per stream seems more like an average at best, not even an accurate sort of an amount.
A lot of these per streams have come up from artists sharing their reports, where they'll say, this is here's what I generated, here's how many plays I had, and here is what I calculated by just doing a simple division of streams per how much they made. And what also these artists don't share is, what are their splits? What is their deal structure? Do they get 100%? It's, there's a lot of that information that goes out that, hey, it looks good, and we want to make it sound as, terrible as it is, and go with the scorched earth way. But, and like you were saying, I highly doubt Universal is getting paid 0.0038 or whatever it is per every single stream. There are other deals in place that have an effect on what these packages are. And, some people are privy to those discussions and many are not. All right, if anybody would like to, we're going to have a few more articles to go. If anybody would like to jump up to the stage and have any comments, thoughts, or if there is something in the news that you wanted to discuss and we did not cover it, feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring you on up. All right, this is for UK.
Peter, quickly, before we move on, do you mind if I break in? We have some breaking news coming up here with weather. There is some inclement weather coming into the area for at least a couple of our listeners, because we're listening from all over the world, and the weather's different everywhere you are. So look outside and make sure that inclement weather isn't coming for you where you are. Back to you, Peter.
Right on. Thank you for that. All right, so this one is from thepurpleguide.co.uk, and the Purple Guide is an organization in the UK that's for the health, safety, and welfare of the music and other events. So it's a new interim briefing has been published to provide support and strategic direction for festival organizers in the planning of festivals until the results of the government's events research program, the ERP, and reviews on social distancing and COVID status certification later this summer. In the document, it builds upon planning considerations published last year of the Purple Guide website and is again produced by leading practitioners from the festival industry who continue to work in collaboration with the Department for Digital, Culture, Media and Sports and the Public Health England to determine how music festivals could safely reopen with COVID-19 mitigation measures in place. And it goes on. So they're talking about consider the primary scenarios of the operation issue that may arise when planning and delivering an event during COVID, provide an understanding of the risks and operational areas to support a proportionate and measured approach in planning, support event organizers and multi-agency partners to fully understand the risk of independent activities to wider public. And Paul Reed from the CEO of the Association of Independent Festivals says, quote, this interim guidance briefing provides strategic direction to festival organizers and includes practical mitigation tips measures to help them continue to plan for this summer and beyond. I'd like to thank Emma Parkinson and Jenna McKay for this particular work in there and their colleagues from across the festival sector, and it goes on there. So what this, it's really interesting what they're doing with this. There's the guide, the resource, and it's the purpleguide.co.uk. And Angela, have you come across this overseas there?
Yeah, I actually have. They're actually regularly, their representatives have regularly been asked to comment on a series of events that have been held outside of what industry standards they're laying out for it, and it sort of is further highlighting the need for a sort of standard across the board. One example I heard of recently is the grime artist AJ Tracy, who has just released a new album, had 4 dates planned, one of which he actually performed in Birmingham, I believe it was, and there were dates in Manchester and Bristol, and I think 1 or 2 other places that have since been canceled because the promoters were not as COVID compliant as one would hope in keeping up with the standards as laid out by the government and outlined in the Purple Guide. So it's been highlighted as one of those instances when it really does pay to align and to sort of check. And they've been fined £10,000 for each of the events, in addition to having to refund all tickets and provide some sort of restitution to the vendors that have been that were hired in for it. So they are definitely taking it very seriously, and I'm quite proud of the idea that there's an organization out there that's sort of looking after itself, and their website has got every association, every union, every organization in the UK and in Europe, as far as I can see, that are aligning with it to try to share best practices. So definitely worth a look if you're in the promotion game.
Right on. All right. Thank you for that update. And it's like, our UK correspondent.
I do my best.
Right on. All right, let's talk about a couple little fun things here. And this one is going to be about Taylor Swift breaks Beatles record with 3rd #1 album in 9 months. So this is Taylor Swift has broken a chart record set by the Beatles. Her re-recorded album Fearless, Taylor's version, debuted #1 with sales of 21,145. The official charts company confirmed that by scoring her 3rd chart-topping album in the space of just 259 days, following Folklore on July 31st and Evermore on December 18th, Taylor Swift sets a new all-time record for the fastest accumulation of 3 #1 albums ever. She is also the first solo artist to do so in under 12 months. The record was previously held by the Beatles for 54 years. The band notched a trio of chart toppers in 364 days between 1965 and 66 with Help, Rubber Soul, and Revolver. So it's just this is in Music Week. And I thought it was just kind of interesting, a nice little tidbit. I mean, this is a record that hasn't been broken. I mean, they don't make the albums. They don't make albums like they used to. And when I say that, I mean, we remember the days it seemed like a band would come out with an album every year.
Well, some artists still do that, and that's still a model of release for a lot of artists and bands. But that was just kind of the thing back in the day. You had an album come out once a year.
Exactly. So, well, speaking of things coming out and updates going on all the time, Facebook, and this is from vox.com. Facebook plans to go after Clubhouse and podcasts with a suite of new audio products. These announcements are coming today, but some products won't show up for a while. This is part of Recode. Okay. And basically, it starts off, Facebook wants you to start talking and listening on Facebook. Sources say the social network is planning to announce a series of products, some of which won't appear for some time under the umbrella of, quote, social audio on Monday. They include Facebook's take on Clubhouse, the audio-only service, which we're on right now, so we know what this is all about. Facebook's audio plans include, all right, one, an audio only version of Rooms. Its video conferencing product it launched a year ago when the pandemic spurred massive adoption of Zoom. A Clubhouse like product that will let groups of people listen to and interact with speakers on a virtual stage. A product that will let Facebook users record brief voice messages and post them in their news feeds, like they currently can do with text, pictures, and videos. Another one is a podcast discovery product that will be connected with Spotify, which has been heavily investing in podcasts over the last couple of years. And, this is also a note. I remember if you were there when Spotify first rolled out, you can have a Spotify account, but then you were automatically getting linked to Facebook. So for Facebook and Spotify linked up 10 years ago when Facebook was pushing its idea of frictionless sharing, which was supposed to mean that your Facebook friends could see what you were reading or listening to or watching. And that one fizzled out pretty fast. It is unclear what the timeline is, but they will announce this at some point today, and some of it's going to go live today. So Facebook offered this non-comment in response to a query of Recode. Quote, we've been connecting people through audio and video technologies for many years and are always exploring new ways to improve that experience for people. And that's basically all you're going to get from Facebook out of this until they say what it to make that big announcement. So again, we've been kind of waiting for something like this. We have we have Twitter having with Spaces, and we also have other Clubhouse. Everything's being called a Clubhouse competitor. Discord, Slack, LinkedIn. I mean, name a company, and they're all trying to go audio only. So tying this in is another article from TechCrunch, and this title is Clubhouse closes an undisclosed $4 billion valuation Series C round as tech giants' clones circle. So this just rolled out. It starts off, has raised a Series C funding round, reported value of the company at $4 billion. Clubhouse said the new round of financing was led by Andrew Chen of Andreessen Horowitz and a whole bunch of, the funding comes as Twitter, Spotify, Facebook, Telegram, Discord, and LinkedIn. I was not aware of Telegram on that one, so now let's add Telegram into that list. So this is, one of the things about this, usually for late stage of funding, the company has not revealed the amount it's raised. Industry sources say that is probably because the Series C funding round is a multi-stage and therefore not officially closed. Alternatively, the company is hyping itself ahead of a sale, as is often the case with hot startups. Twitter reportedly broke off talks to acquire the startup company at a $4 billion valuation, according to Bloomberg. So despite appearances that this funding round has been timed to coincide with the launch of this week's Facebook Clubhouse clone, one well-placed source said, quote, this funding round has been in the works for at least 1.5 months, and some others offers have been above 2x the $4 billion valuation. In other words, there are some investors out there who think Clubhouse is worth more than $8 billion. So this is going to be interesting to watch. It's, one of those things they were talking about, hyping themselves up so that it might be looking at a sale. I mean, they didn't take it when Twitter put it out there, but this also goes back to Snapchat, and that was 2010, 2012, I think it was, when Facebook offered Snapchat, which was only a year old at the time. Facebook offered Snapchat $3 billion, and he said no. And then depending on how you feel, it's like Snapchat continues its success, continued its rise. It's still there. I haven't used Snapchat. A lot of people my generation may not use Snapchat, but it's still a hot topic, a hot app. All right.
Before we go on, I quickly want to welcome Benita to the stage because Benita has also joined us on the stage. Hi, Benita. Welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I really appreciate you inviting me to the stage, Eli. I hope everyone's having a good day. I'm really enjoying the conversation. As an artist, I'm a creative, and I really would like to just lean more into the business side of things. So I really appreciate the news information. But I couldn't help but think about Facebook. You have to give it to Facebook. They see it's almost as if they really want to dominate, and I guess that's what business is all about. And I'm not surprised to hear that they're coming out with some audio only products. But I have to think as artists, maybe that's the approach we need to take as well. Like we have to continue to grow. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, no, that's fascinating that you said that, because I think you're absolutely right. We're hearing so much about audio only kind of being the wave of the streaming future. But I think it's so fascinating that you said that, because it just keeps coming up again and again. But I'm really glad you're joining us here today. This is the Music News Power Hour, where we read some headlines from the World Wide Web that involve the music industry and the music biz. We share these headlines here in the room, and then we have a roundtable discussion coming up soon in a back half of the show, where we invite you to raise your hand, hands up, and please come join us on the stage if there's a headline that we are covering that you'd like to discuss, or if there's a headline you think should have been part of our broadcast but it hasn't been mentioned. Please do raise your hand and come share that with us. Sorry, Peter. Benita and I were having a minute there. We didn't mean to cut you off.
Sorry.
Right on. All right. So just going to go over to South by Southwest. This was in pitchfork.com. So South by Southwest steak sold to Rolling Stone and Billboard publisher. A co-founder of the Austin Festival called Penske Media Corporation's 50% ownership a lifeline. So this came out across the wire over the weekend. Penske Media Corporation, the publisher behind Rolling Stone, Billboard, and Variety, is now a 50% owner of South by Southwest, the Wall Street Journal reports. The Austin-based music, tech, and film festival has been owned by the festival's founders since 1987. The founders will continue to manage and operate the festival, while Penske will own the largest stake in the festival. The Texas Festival was canceled in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to layoffs within the company. This year, it returned as a virtual online event. An in-person festival is being planned for 2022. Quote, "It's been an incredibly tough period for small businesses. South by Southwest included," Roland Swenson, South by Southwest CEO and co-founder, said in a statement. He continues, "When Jay Penske came to us with interest in becoming a partner, it was a true lifeline for us. While South by Southwest's core business will retain its focus on the March event in Austin, this strategic investment will also brings the exploration of new capabilities in providing quality program to our diverse community of highly engaged creative professionals." I mean, this was something that, South by Southwest, after they had to cancel, and that was one of the closest ones to the deadline when we were going into lockdown in 2020. And within months, they had to lay off, just even like a month, I think it was, they had to lay off a third of their staff. I mean, they got hit, like everybody else, but it was like within a month, they had to lay off a third of their staff.
They got hit hard.
Yeah. All right, and what's a day without our daily Spotify update?
Gotta have the Spotify spot. For those of you who don't know, we can't keep off of Spotify here in the Music News Power Hour as we read through the headlines. We're going to move into the last couple of our headlines here that Peter's going to read for us. And then after that, we will open up the floor for our roundtable discussion. So if you're down in the audience in our clubhouse room here in the Music News Power Hour, please raise your hand as Peter goes through these last couple of articles for us, and we'll be happy to have you come up and join our discussion. Hands up and come join us. Back to you, Peter.
Do I have to raise my hand?
Actually, you got to do both.
I got to do both hands. Yeah. What's up? What's up? It's like, so yeah, it's like, raise your hands. All right. So anybody who's watching us on video,
Peter, I think that was just one of the funniest moments on video that you and I have ever had so far here at the Music News Power Hour. You and I with our hands up trying to dance. That was amusing for anybody who saw that. That's one of your 7 daily.
I'm going to have to make this a YouTube short and just put it out there, and maybe mint an NFT and send it out there. All right. So yes, News Power Hour NFTs are coming. Get yours today. All right, we're going to wrap up this article before going to the roundtable with, and this is a complete music update. Spotify says it has no plans to use new music recommendations patent following privacy concerns. All right, so the article starts off. Spotify is, let me just also remind you, you can see all the articles and the show notes, which is at musicindustrycity.com. clubhouse.com. Click on the Clubhouse Information Center graphic, and that'll take you, and you can click on the show notes in there. So all the links to all the articles, we keep them going Monday through Friday, which we do this every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. So the article starts off, Spotify says there's no plans to actually use a patent it recently secured in the U.S. that covers a speech recognition technology, which would enable a streaming service to recommend music based on a user's environment and emotions. The technology covered by that new patent, the paperwork for which Spotify first filed in 2018, was criticized earlier this month by the U.S.-based group Access Now, which says it seeks to, quote, defend and extend the digital rights of users at risk around the world. Confirming that it had written to the streaming firm about its new patent, Access Now said that the proposed new technology, quote, presents grave piracy and security concerns. The always-on technology claims to be able to detect, among other things, emotional state, gender, age, or accent to recommend music. It added that, quote, monitoring emotional state and making recommendations based on it puts Spotify in a dangerous position of power in relation to a user, that it is impossible to infer gender without discriminating against trans and non-binary people, and that the always-on nature of the proposed tech would mean that it would, quote, likely be ingesting sensitive information. Harvesting deeply personal data could make Spotify a target for snooping government authorities and malicious hackers seeking information, it also stated. The digital rights group goes on. There's much more here, but in response, sent last week and published by Access Now on its website, Spotify's chief legal officer says, quote, Spotify has never implemented the technology described in the patent in any of our products, and we have no plans to do so. Our research and development teams are constantly envisioning and developing new technology as part of our ongoing innovation cycle. Sometimes those innovations end up being implemented in our products, and sometimes they don't. The decision to patent an invention does not always reflect the company's intent to implement the invention in a product, he adds, but is instead influenced by a number of other considerations, including our responsibilities to our users, to society at large. I can assure you that any product Spotify develops both now and in the future will reflect our commitment to conducting business in a socially responsible manner and comply with the applicable law. All right. Well, it's kind of good to hear that. I mean, if I almost kind of wonder what kind of playlist they would be put together based on my emotional state.
Well, just as a female who uses a man's moniker, I'm curious to know what they would think just about me in general. Like I'm a girl who likes guitars more than handbags, and my name is Eli, and this could get fun,
Yeah, based on my profile picture, I'm thinking nonstop Nick Cave, like all day.
Oh yeah, I like that. Yeah, good assessment.
I couldn't help.
I like the Nick Cave vibe. Sorry, Benita, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help but think when they said that they base it on your mood. What if you're sad, but you want to hear happy music, but they give you sad music?
Well, maybe that's what they're doing. I mean, and then who's controlling that? That's the thing. That's part of the AI learning experience. It's like, all those data points where, they're going to be able to track. They're like, okay, it's going to take a while because it all has to learn. So, for instance, if it tracks that you're in a sad mood, it's not going to give you that playlist right away. It's going to learn from your behavior. If it says, like, over the last year that you have been sad, 10 times, and 8 of those 10 times you played happy music, you went over to your Spotify and you played happy music or upbeat music or over 130 BPMs, females, singer, post-punk, whatever. So they're going to take all that data and say, okay, we'll create a playlist for you made up of 80% happy songs and 20% sad songs. I mean, are they, it's like, or is it going to be like, hey, I'm sad, so I'm going to play When Doves Cry.
Right.
Or is it like, I'm sad, so I'm going to play Let's Get It Started?
I'm not going to play that song anytime I'm ever sad. Sorry.
Well, I wasn't saying you personally. I would never. I wasn't going to, Peter. I wouldn't insult you like that. I wasn't saying you.
All right. So yeah, so we had a lot that we covered there today. So we had just an update on Billy McFarland from Firefest. He's no longer in solitary confinement. The social platform Station Head, it reached 500,000 active users. Why it's misleading to say Apple Music pays twice as much per stream as Spotify, which some media outlets were claiming that Apple pays 1 cent per stream. They were talking about the Purple Guide, the COVID-19 planning guidance published for the UK festivals. It was just received an update. Taylor Swift breaks the Beatles record with third #1 album in 9 months. And Facebook wants to go after Clubhouse. So because Facebook just is rolling out today and making an announcement, and will roll out a lot of different platforms and audio and other areas that are going to have similar engagement with audience members. So is it going to be a direct competitor to Clubhouse? We'll have to wait and see, probably maybe even tonight. Clubhouse closes an undisclosed $4 billion valuation Series C. And South by Southwest sold its stake to Rolling Stone and Billboard publisher. And Spotify, this is what we were talking about, the Spotify patent technology because of privacy concerns, where the patent claims that, they could tune in and, recommend music based on your mood, age, gender, all that other, and it's a lot of privacy data there. So anybody want to raise their hand or just open up their mic? In particular topic you wanted to talk about, or if we missed something, feel free to bring something else to the table. If there's something breaking while we were talking, or if you have something and you're in the audience, you wanted to chat about something, feel free to raise your hand and join us. Eli, is there anything that's...
Peter,
Go on, Angela.
two things came to mind when you were doing that recap. About two different things. The first was while I'm very pleased that South by Southwest has had sort of a lifeline in the form of Jay Penske and Penske Media, it does tend to beg the question, though, will there be a category specific publisher sort of blackout with South by Southwest sponsorships? Because I know in previous years, activations like the Fader for example, that is a different publisher. I think that's Rob Stone's company, have been very successful and major parts of the festival. And now with Variety and Rolling Stone and Billboard's publishers now owning a stake, could that mean that potentially other publishers are given sort of are given a not category specific blackout there? And the other question was about the Clubhouse model. Eventually, obviously, they've won their funding, but at some stage, it's going to have to be monetized. Does anybody have any idea, or has anybody heard anything how they're planning to monetize Clubhouse?
I've heard something yesterday about that, but I'm sorry if I cut you off, Peter.
No, go on.
Well, they already started where you can tip people. So there's several users who have the tip function. And I heard something yesterday, but please don't quote me, that Clubhouse is planning to have like curated rooms where you can subscribe to, you have to subscribe to get in certain rooms. But that's what I've heard so far.
I was in the town hall yesterday, and they said that while that tipping function is enabled, Clubhouse isn't taking any of that money. I think that has something to do with Apple's in-app purchase policy, where they would have to give 30% or something like that to Apple if they did that. And the way around that is for Clubhouse to not take any of that money. So when you give someone $10 or subscribe to someone's room, which you'll be able to do in the future, if you send $10, the person you're sending to will receive $10, and you will be charged an additional, 35 cents plus X percentage from Stripe. And Stripe is allowed to collect those fees. It's just Clubhouse that isn't. So Clubhouse, said that they, have a monetization strategy that they're still developing, that some of it will be focused around sponsorships, getting involved with connecting brands and creators and brands and rooms and clubs and so forth, but that those monetization efforts will likely take place, contractually and off the app. That was my understanding yesterday.
So is this when we start talking about sponsorship opportunities, I know they had the accelerator program that people could apply to, and they were talking about like have some approved content creators and guide them and help them with sponsorships. So, are we going to look at a platform that was open format discussions, which there's two different sides of Clubhouse. There's the hangout aspect of it, which is, we just go in a room, we chit chat or throw up an idea, a topic, and we have an open forum discussion and invite everybody to the stage like we do in the Daily Show, the Good Day Music World. Or we have like a program where it's more of like a news read like this, and we invite a few guests up to the stage. So now when we talk about sponsorships and where they need to monetize, I mean, you're talking about a $4 billion valuation. They have to look at this, and that was going back to the article. It's like, are they looking for a sale? Is that what they're trying to do? And to cash out, and that's their exit? Or is this something that it's going to be sponsored? And remember, Snapchat, when they did go into the sponsorship mode, it was massive sponsorships, but it was also your entire feed. So now what happens in audio world? Is it Nike? Is it big brands that can hold discussions? I mean, they have to create content, and that content is live discussions. So now you're looking at, are these rooms when they start algorithms? I just noticed, and I don't know if anybody else noticed that have any thoughts on this, is I was in the hallway before, and I hit explore, and it just basically sorted the entire hallway in descending order of viewers for each of the rooms. So now so you get these big brands in, and they're like, all right, we sponsor this. Okay, you'll get priority feed, and it'll be sponsored in the Nike room and whatever they can do for sponsorship on here. But Nike has to create content on an ongoing basis. If that's one way. The other is then saying we're going to take our top rooms or clubs, and then say, okay, we'll align a sponsorship with you. So anytime you go into the Eli Club, Eli's going to have, whatever brand attached with her, which is fantastic. But how does it interfere with it? And here's the other thing. If you're talking about sponsorships, if there's a news program or if there's a talk show like a podcast, these are things that the host has to be wary of the type of content. So how much control is that? Or will they be able to sponsor rooms, which are more of the casual hangout rooms where anything goes? So you're going to look at people, could somebody go into, like, say if Eli has her club and has her room and it's sponsored by Nike, and congratulations, Eli, can you get me a free pair of sneakers? But she's like in a chill out room, hang out somewhere, and she just says something, and it could be the most minor thing, and then somehow it just gets escalated, and every rule of telephone, and there goes the sponsorship deal.
I think in some cases, Peter, it might. I mean, looking at this, if I used to used to buy and sell sponsorships when I was on the agency side, working in advertising, and when I'm looking at the app, I mean, everybody has to have the app open, because in order to click yourself muting off and on, you have to be looking at the app more or less. So it would stand to reason that they could sell, banner ads, they could sell sponsorships for certain clubs, like you say, Music Industry City could be sponsored by, Sam Ash or whatever, and based on the content that you're expecting to provide. I mean, when a concert is sponsored by by a given sponsor, if a fire or a fight were to break out, or whatever, there are inherent risks and that sort of thing, and it's obviously not the brand's fault that things get out of hand. So I would suggest that a similar model applies with live audio conversation, that if things do get turned around, that it might obviously have that risk sort of built into it. But it could also include something that's not unlike the way social media posts like Instagram posts are, where they put hashtag ad and they do a little video where they mention it, so that maybe in the room, when Eli resets the room every half an hour or so for an hour long or a 2 hour long room, it's, this room is brought to you by Nike. Check out the new blah, blah, blah trainers that have just been released on the website. And then they read out the website, and it's somewhere here that you can click on it. I mean, if it were me, that's how I would sell it in to start anyway.
Any
I'll
other
tell you
thoughts?
what, I know this is, I know I'm joking in this respect, but I'm seriously waiting for SNL to start doing a Clubhouse sketch where Clubhouse has chosen to monetize by charging people to get out of rooms.
I bet you'll have rooms that are sponsored. I bet you will have individual influencers that will be sponsored basically, everywhere they go. Maybe they'll have a little banner tag on their profile picture that says Pepsi or, whatever. There's just a lot of endless possibilities for sponsorship and monetization on this app right now, I think.
I should come clean, Peter. I'm sponsored by Mario Kart, which is why I keep reminding you to play.
Mario Kart, Mario Kart. All right, let's Eli, I think it's almost time we run the room. We got about 5 minutes
It
left.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes left. This has
Final
been
thoughts?
the Music News Power Hour, and we just have a few minutes left. So we want to see if there are any final thoughts from anybody on the stage here as we come down to our last few minutes of the Music News Power Hour today on this Monday. Final thoughts?
Hey folks. I came in really late and missed that conversation about the Spotify analyzing behavior and moods and stuff. Was there any sort of conversation around that side? I just came in at the point, Eli, where I think you were pointing out the difference between recognizing that somebody was in a bad mood and then playing music to uplift them rather than recognizing they're in a bad mood and put them in a worse mood. I was wondering whether there's any discussion about that, because it's something that has come up a number of times before about the whole idea of sort of escalating things that are going on rather than combating them.
In that respect, Andy, something that made me curious as we were reading this article was what psychologists would say about these kinds of metrics and these kinds of suppositions. And I would be really curious to know if there's anybody who knows about a psychologist who is studying what music does to mood and what mood influences music, how mood influences music. I think that could be a whole separate arm of psychology study, just as we see these streaming services come to prominence and the metrics that they produce become so much more important and prevalent.
Absolutely. I know a sound designer who's been involved with writing music that reacted to how a car was being driven. And if it, when they took it out on the test field, they just had to stop it, because as you drove faster, it kind of played faster music, and it just encouraged you to drive really, really fast and erratically. It kind of did the opposite of what you would hope it would do. So I wonder whether there's. You're absolutely right, Eli. I think it's psychology in that area of what it actually does to people thinking and so on would be really, really valid.
Gives a new meaning to highway into the danger zone.
Oh yeah.
Well, not to mention to some people, Start Me Up or Satisfaction might be songs that would make them happy. But when I hear the Rolling Stones, it makes me just not happy.
I love you, Angela.
Love you back.
So going on the technology, there was, I can't remember the name of the app, but it was this app, and it was like, would take your like heartbeat, rhythm, stuff like that, and it would speed up. So when you were running, you would speed up. It would speed up the music that was playing, and so you would like have all the stuff. And they even this is how they promote. It's like, yes, even during sex, it'll change the tempo of the music that you're playing, so to match. So I mean, like, how much more are we gonna want to allow for anything to be affecting our music listening or anything?
Can I just pick my playlist? Like, can I just pick my songs? Can I just choose the songs that I want to hear when I want to hear them? Do I have to go by the metrics? This is starting to get scary.
Well, the thing is, most people don't, right? But I was listening to something this weekend about recommendations and playlists, and about how most people don't take the time to program their own recommendations. And so they have to have an algorithm that tries to do it as best they can with the information that they have, while still giving power users the opportunity to really curate their lists.
Yeah. I guess that is true. But just for me personally, of course, I want to pick my own songs. But it's so true that a lot of people just don't. These metrics are becoming increasingly more important, and that's why we're covering some of these metrics articles here today in the Music News Power Hour. Just to quickly wrap up, we're here for 1 hour each weekday, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 Eastern. Please join us. iOS users can join us on Clubhouse. You can join in the discussion by raising your hand at any time, or if there's an article that you want to share, you can also share that with us, and we will share in the discussion also. I see Peter with his hands up. Hands up. We bring a whole new meaning to the words hands up here in the Music News Power Hour. So join us every weekday, Monday through Friday, 12 to 1 for all the music news that you actually want to hear about and discuss. For my co-host Peter Twing, my name is Eli Window. Thank you so much to everyone on the stage. Thank you to everyone listening in on Clubhouse and to everyone streaming with us today. We will see you again tomorrow, Tuesday at 12 Eastern for the Music News Power Hour. Over to you, Peter.
Right on. And just final thoughts. One thing to think about when satellite radio came into play and they were saying commercial-free radio, and you don't have to be stuck listening to those radio stations that are just jamming music down your throat. You can listen to it commercial-free, and you have the Pandora and all these listening streaming services, and you can listen to what you want. When that first came into play and they started analyzing what people were listening to, it was the same stuff they were listening to on the radio. When they moved over to commercial free and when they had choices, they were listening to the same stuff they were on the radio. So if anybody wants to go back to the early 2000s and mid 2000s to find that statistic, it's there, and it's a real interesting thing. So once again, thank you for everybody joining in. Happy Monday, everybody. Thanks for everybody up on stage. We will see you again tomorrow, and a special thank you to my co-host Eli Window. All right, have an awesome day. Peace.